Hello, everyone. My name is Jordyn Smith, and I am the voice and the astrologer for this YouTube channel, Nonconformist Contents. Here is your full moon in Leo astrological report. Before I get into this, there is a lot to unpack with this one. What I want to say is that yes, if you are new to this channel, which I have a few of you, there is a birthday special going on for Aquarius. If you are born underneath the sun sign of Aquarius, you can sign up for a natal chart reading over Zoom with me. It is $75 for 90 minutes, and I will record this. So after you're done, I will send you the recording, but I will go over your natal chart through the lens of evolutionary astrology, which is essentially looking at why did you come here? What are you trying to get done? From an evolutionary perspective. And I will answer all of your questions that you have for your natal chart. And I will also go over your solar return for this year, which is really looking at the energies that are going down this year for you that help you continue to evolve and to grow. So there's that. You have until the 20th of this month to book that, and then it's going to switch over to Pisces. The other thing I wanted to announce is that the Jeffrey Wolf Green Evolutionary Astrology Association is going to start a new class series, which is going over Venus and sexuality. And the first class is a free introductory class that will be taught by Michelle Dench, Ari Moshe Wolf, and Kristen Fontana, and that is on March 1st at 10 a.m. Pacific time. If you do sign up for this class series, you will also have classes where people are going to go over Venus through two signs. It's going to be like the polarities. And so you'll have Kristen Fontana going over Aries and Libra, me going over Taurus and Scorpio. You'll have our emotional wolf going over Gemini and Sagittarius. And then there will be Rav Shahal going over Cancer and Capricorn. And Michelle Dench is going to go over Leo and Aquarius. And then Rose Marcus will go over Virgo Pisces. And so we'll each go over two signs, and it's the energies of Venus and what Venus represents through sexuality and all things Venusian. So I will post a link below for the association, and you can sign up for like an annual membership. I think it's like $99 or something like that. And that includes the full class series amongst a few other things. And um, yeah, I don't even know if it's been announced yet on the Jeffrey Wolf Green Association website yet, but I wanted to let you all know. I know that you can purchase an annual membership on there already, but that is the class series that's coming up starting in March. So without further ado, let's go over your full moon forecast happening in the sign of Leo. As always, I'm going to bring the chart up and then I'll pull it down and talk about it. And I'm going to do that a couple of times because there's quite a few things, and this is a really juicy full moon. A couple of things before I bring up the chart is one, for those who are just learning astrology, a full moon happens when the moon and the sun are opposing each other. And what this is really reflecting is there's, on the one hand, past issues that are wanting to be opposed, seen through the opposition, but we all have free will. So we could be opposing the future. So it's about choices. And a full moon really illuminates different emotional dynamics that are wanting to be thrown off and the new choices that we're wanting to make on an emotional level, hence the moon. The other thing is that we only evolve through the emotional body. If you are new on my YouTube channel, you're going to hear me say that often. And we can intellectualize things in our mind, but unless we truly allow ourselves to feel emotional dynamics, um, it's just intellectualizing. And so we have to allow ourselves to feel things in order to heal them and to grow and to evolve. And so that's really important to keep in mind, especially with some of these dynamics going on during this full moon lunation. Um, and the full moon is also reflecting, um, you know, a need for us to culminate emotional dynamics that first started during the last Leo new moon. So now it's like we've initiated something at the Leo new moon, and now it's coming into light what now needs to be thrown off, what new choices we need to make, speaking to the Leo archetype. And Leo as an archetype with this lunation is really, Leo is where we truly can self-actualize in a creative way. And that can be any type of way. It's unique and individualistic to each one of us how we creatively self-actualize. The chart is going to give a bit of context for this on a personal level. But you also want to see where this full moon is happening in your natal chart by house, and you want to see if it's aspecting anything in your own natal chart, and that will give you more context if you want to dive more into that and you don't really understand. Book an appointment, either with me or with someone who you feel like could really help you understand this, especially if you have a lot going on. Leo's also where it correlates to our heart chakra. It's where we find love and joy, um, especially within purpose. And it's where one is really needing to tap into having self-love and self-dignity. And it's important for us to remember that your sun and your own natal chart is going to be heavily influenced by this Leo full moon because your sun is this Leo full moon's ruler. So it's going to look different for each person. But the sun will give you a lot of context because the sun is reflecting that archetype of Leo. It's where one filters everything in from their chart to give it purpose and meaning. And that is Leo in a nutshell. It's where we find joy and love and purpose through self-actualizing. The other thing about Leo that's not often talked about is this is an area of one's chart, fifth house, or if you have Leo dynamics, even your sun, no matter what sign it's in, it's really this area that is speaking to um, the propensity to be able to understand oneself in a creative and purposeful way. Like I've given this example of I have a sun in the ninth house and it's in Capricorn. Every experience that I've had in my life has been filtered through that sun sign as a way to give my life purpose and definition. So a lot of my stuff has been about being my own authority, um, cultivating correct judgment, all of these Capricorn dynamics, and it's through having a personal voice of authority, but then it's in the ninth house, utilizing all of this wisdom, Capricornian wisdom, to teach, and also to structure my life, Capricorn, in my own personal truth and authenticity, sun in the ninth. So you can really glean a lot through how you're giving purpose in your life through your sun sign. And so it's important whenever I'm going over this Leo full moon that you look at where your sun is by house, by sign, and the aspects that it's making Last thing I want to say about Leo is that can be where well, it's two things. It's where you're figuring out how to creatively actualize through understanding your own unique individuality, and that's pulling in Aquarius. It's where you could end up giving this away um to community, to help with community. It's where you can experience co-creation with source and through higher intelligence. Um, and it's also where there can be lessons, depending on your chart, of needing to self-actualize through the strength of one's own will. Um, a lot of times when people have a lot of Leo or fifth house dynamics, they've had a lot of recent prior lifetimes where they feel overpowered by others or they haven't been able to actualize because power has been imposed upon them. And so people who have this strong emphasis on the fifth house, their sun or Leo, are learning these deep evolutionary lessons around strengthening their soul through the strength of their own will. Like, I'm going to do this, and it's not going to be dependent upon if someone is saying good job, or it's really where one can learn that their value lies within what they can do for themselves to actualize what they feel is giving them purpose on a soul level and not utilizing and not giving that over to someone else. Um, Not depending on other people to say good job or this is how this should be done. It's like where someone can really experience love from within themselves through blazing their own trail, blazing their own path through the strength of their own will. I'm going to do this not just in a like not in a selfish way, but a self-focused way. I have a purpose. I want to actualize that purpose, and I know that it's not dependent upon anyone else except for myself. So it's important for us to speak about this before I really jump into this full moon event chart. So, without further ado, let me share this chart with you. So, the first things that I want to pull up for you is that one, this full moon is happening in the second house of this chart. It's ruled by the sun, which it's opposing, but it's also opposing Ceres and Mercury, all in Aquarius in that eighth house. And this axis of the second and eighth house is square to Uranus. So it's in a T square. So Mercury, Ceres, and the sun are all square, its ruler. And then it's opposing this Leo moon, and the Leo moon is ruled by that sun. Something also interesting to note is that Pluto is tightening its trine to Uranus. If we're bringing in Uranus, we also want to bring in Venus, who is at 5 degrees Aries in the 10th house of this chart. And she is ruled by Mars retrograde in Cancer in the 12th. That is ruled by this moon. The last thing I want to point out before I speak about a lot of this is that the Mars is in what we call a quintile to the south node, and the fourth, and the south node is in what we call an inconjunct to its ruler, Mercury. So that's enough for me to talk about for now. You will have this, and I'm going to pull this chart down and speak about what is this, what are just those things I pointed out corresponding to. So let's take this step by step. The moon is in the second house. and it is in Leo. I've gone over Leo already, but it's really reflecting there's emotional dynamics that we're wanting to self-actualize, and it's dealing with our inner relationship to self. Second house. If you have not watched the astrology forecast for the week, you can go watch that, and this really ties into um, the astrology for the week. But there's this need for us to self-actualize through the ways in which we inwardly relate to ourselves. Um, and that's interesting because the sun is the ruler of that um, full moon. And it's in the eighth house, and it is conjunct Ceres and Mercury. So, what is that reflecting? What is that speaking to on collective and individual levels? Well, what it's speaking to is a sun in Aquarius is definitely about wanting to self-actualize through one's own unique individuality. And that means with the sun in the eighth house that we can be confronted with different dynamics on a psychological and emotional level during this lunation that we're needing to liberate from in order to understand our unique individuality further. This can be where we're like, okay, I'm having a shock to my system about an emotional or psychological dynamic, and now I'm needing to choose through this opposition. Is this who I am, who I'm not, or who I absolutely cannot be? And then to liberate from what you're not willing to be anymore. And also to not get hung up on shame or guilt around this. And that is also seen with that South Node in Virgo in the fourth house, the need to improve upon emotional dynamics where we could be feeling insecure. And the in conjunct to Mercury and Aquarius, which is conjunct Ceres and the Sun, is where we're needing to improve. An in conjunct is speaking to improving, especially a gibbous in conjunct, which is what the South Node is in to Mercury, but where we're needing to improve upon our own inner thinking. So this is a lunation that can also confront us with our thinking and the ways in which we express ourselves to ourselves, and the need to really liberate from that in order to relate to ourselves in a different way. And with Ceres conjunct and sandwiched in between the Sun and Mercury, there can be this dynamic where we're confronting through the eighth house of where we've lost our individuality or where we've lost different maybe friendships or different dynamics in our life, or where we've experienced loss through traumatic events. And now we're needing to nurture ourselves from within, South Node in the fourth house, in order to improve upon our unique individuality. How am I going to be authentic? How am I going to feel individualistic and authentic? What actually resonates with me on a soul level? And with the Sun, Ceres, Mercury, and the moon in a T square to Uranus and Taurus in the 11th house, it's really emphasizing this liberation and individuation quality of how when we do this, it helps us to transform our inner relationship to self. And how are we going to be doing that? Well, Uranus and Taurus is ruled by that Venus in the 10th house in Aries. That is speaking to initiating taking accountability and responsibility for what's mine, what's not, and initiating a new way of how I'm going to, or we are going to inwardly relate to ourselves. Thus, the moon in the second house in Leo is like, hey, there is a propensity for each one of us to self-actualize through relating to ourselves in a brand new way. How you talk, how you think, how you feel about yourself, and the need to throw off old dynamics that are impeding, they're an impediment upon you relating to yourself in a way that gleans a sense of authority and a sense of accountability and responsibility. And with Mars and Cancer retrograde in that 12th house, it's all about us getting into the pure emotion. Same with Neptune on the North Node, which I'll get into in just a second. But Mars retrograde in Cancer, especially when it's ruled by the moon in Leo in the second, is there can be emotional triggers that we experience as a way for us to confront where we're holding on to the past and the need to resolve it so that way we can relate to ourselves in a different way, especially on an emotional level. And Mars is in a quintile to that South Node in Virgo in the fourth house. That is where a quintile is all about, it has a Leo feel to it. It's all about creative self-actualization. So there's a need that if we get triggered by something external, to be responsible in how we react. That's also seen with Venus and Aries being ruled by that Mars in the 10th house. There is a responsibility. It almost gives us a opportunity to take a pause and to say, I am not going to react in the way that I once did. I'm going to take this as a learning moment to stop and pause and to observe all of the Aquarius, that Uranus, about what's going on inside of me and how I relate. And then I can make a choice to be responsible in my reaction. And through being responsible in my reaction, I get to improve. The other dynamic where I see that some people could be really triggered by emotional dynamics, especially because that Mars is retrograde and it's ruled by a moon and Leo in the second, is I don't feel seen, heard, or understood for who I am. And if that's you, yes, that is really frustrating. And there's a couple of asteroids that speak to this. But what that is really teaching you on a soul level is you, your value lies in you, not anyone else, not in their ability to see or hear or understand who you are. It's about you understanding you and you validating that within you on an emotional level, because then that's where one can self-actualize through relating to themselves in a self-sufficient and self-reliant way. And that is the moon in the second house and all of this energy going down. So it's really through external events being triggered, we really get to see where we might not be doing that. And some of us might be thinking that we've been doing that, but then we get an aha moment of there's more to this. I don't know everything, and there's still improvement to be made. Hence the South Node in Virgo. Um, so the other thing I want to point out is this North Node is conjunct Neptune, its ruler, in the 10th house. Saturn is also in Pisces in the 9th, and it is trining this Mars retrograde in Cancer. And we also have Jupiter here conjunct the North Node of Uranus in the 12th house, which is ruled by this Mercury. And remember that it's in conjunct the South Node. So Mercury is ruling Jupiter, the North Node of Uranus, and the South Node of Virgo. So there's a bit to talk about right here. What is this reflecting? Well, if we're needing to really purge different ways of thinking, that means that there are how we've structured our thinking is also where we are needing to look at how we relate to ourselves through the beliefs that we have and how we value ourselves. Saturn in Pisces in that 9th house, trining Mars retrograde in Cancer, is really where we're needing to continue to dissolve old beliefs, 9th house, and how that has structured our consciousness. It can magnify, oh my gosh, I have an emotional trigger happening, and it's actually correlated to some belief that I have, or some idealistic expectation, or some way that I'm thinking about myself or someone else, or how this is going down. And that trine to Mars is where we can really understand that there's a limitation and that we're needing to allow the pure emotion, Pisces, to wash over us so we can get into that emotional dynamic, and we can then see what thinking or what belief is relating to this emotional trigger. And oh my gosh, I can understand I've over-identified with this belief. And maybe it's idealistic, or maybe it's an illusion. And so it's going to actually help with restructuring the consciousness. Saturn is ruled by that Neptune in Pisces conjunct the North Node, the higher octave of Venus. The higher octave of Venus is Neptune. When we tap into Neptune as the higher octave of Venus, what that's doing when someone truly is tapping into that is that they are transcending the ways in which they used to relate to themselves. And now they're having compassion, love, unconditional love, um, faith and hope in themselves, and they are becoming self-reliant because they can be having a deeper connection with source and understanding that that is really the deepest relationship one can have. And so it can really tap into that. This lunation is also wanting us to heal Pisces, North Node conjunct Neptune, our own inner dynamics that could have, for some, affected their self-esteem, or the ways in which they talk to themselves, or the ways in which they feel about themselves, the ways in which they relate to themselves. And there's just this massive call with that North Node and Neptune in the 10th house to really confront the truth, the ultimate truth, and then to dissolve old beliefs. Jupiter is in the 12th house in Gemini. It's where our illusions within our belief systems, Jupiter's beliefs, can really be magnified if we tap into the pure emotion. And it's where we are called through Mercury and Aquarius ruling that Jupiter to liberate from these old beliefs that are not corresponding to our authenticity. Jupiter. And the North Node of Uranus conjunct Jupiter is really helping us to objectify that and declutter what's in our consciousness in order for us to learn and discover more about ourselves. The other thing with Venus, I will say mostly the North Node and Neptune and Pisces in the 10th, is this is all about deconditioning from our thinking, our beliefs, our values, our ideals, anything. But the call is to tap into the pure emotion. The fact of the matter is, it does not matter where you live on this earth. The collective unconscious, Pisces, Neptune, 12th house, the conditioning is all around victimization. That's why we have a South Node in Virgo right now, to improve upon that in order to jettison that from within. But it's also where the thinking, Mercury, is rooted in a binary that actually perpetuates suppression. Meaning, to take this further, there is an overarching way of thinking and classifying emotions as bad or good. And pure emotion is neither. They are just what is. And so this can be a lunation that through emotional triggers, we are called to really tap into our pure emotion, even if it's intense, and to understand that we should not feel guilt or shame or self-judgment around what it is that's coming up for ourselves, but to allow whatever intense emotion comes up to wash over us. And then we can start to look at what the thinking or the belief is around why do I not want to feel this? Why do I want to escape if that's something that you've been doing? Um, and most of us, it's because we've been taught that if we feel certain things on an emotional level, that it reflects that we're not good. And that is where we're wanting to decondition from this. If you're wanting to relate to yourself in a different way, you're going to have to allow yourself to feel whatever naturally comes up on an emotional level. And this lunation is absolutely asking for that. And it can confront you with where you feel guilt or shame around that. And then that Mercury in Aquarius is wanting us to liberate from that type of thinking and belief structures. Um, where we've over-identified with that type of conditioning. Aquarius is all about liberation from the known, from conditioning. And we're wanting to heal this. We are needing to get back into understanding that emotions are natural and that they come up. And if we are wanting to be self-sufficient, self-reliant, we're needing to relate to ourselves in a different way where we allow ourselves to feel the full array of emotional dynamics that come up. For those who are really seeking a spiritual evolution, revolution process where they can access love and compassion and hope, I'm going to tell you, Virgo, the South Node, can be where we deny or make excuses. It can also be around Judeo-Christian philosophy, if you will. But simply put, if you are denying your own emotional dynamics because you feel guilt that they are bad, you are not going to be able to access the divinity from within. Because when you are denying or suppressing your emotions, that cuts off knowing the divine because it is suppressing something that is natural. Period. It's where we see people spiritual bypass all the time. I don't want my vibration to be low. I don't want to do this or that because then it's gonna negatively affect me in a low vibrational way. Like, meaning I'm gonna focus on spiritualizing, but I'm gonna deny emotional dynamics because I have conditioning from a spiritual sense that me feeling this is bad or that it can affect me. No, that's it. Anything that is naturally occurring and is suppressed becomes distorted. And con that Venus, Neptune, and North Node in that 10th house is really about dissolving these old structures around conditioning, dealing with our pure emotion. And when we do that, we can actually initiate Venus and Aries, a new way to inwardly relate that is natural and timeless. But you got to feel it to heal it. And this full moon is really about all of this. It doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter if you're wanting to spiritualize. It doesn't matter if you're just wanting to get to know yourself. You cannot understand yourself or relate to yourself in the way that is natural if you are not allowing yourself to express or feel the array of emotions because there are beliefs or thinking that has been structured around it being binary, good or bad, wrong or right. And we see that play out in the collective right now. So this is a call to self-actualize through understanding this. So the last thing I want to speak about is I love asteroids, as you all know. I'm going to go over some of these. I kind of went over series a little bit where we're recovering our unique individuality. Think about this is even on a collective level. We're needing to nurture the individuation process on a collective level in order to transform the collective unconscious. Is that going to happen overnight? No. There's not going to be some collective enlightenment, but those of us who follow astrology, who love astrology, we can utilize it as a tool to make conscious choices or a conscious effort to understand these natural laws. And I love asteroid goddesses because, which I'm going to speak to, is because they add more context to the event chart of this lunation, and they really help us to understand and validate what's already being seen in the chart, but they're bringing in more natural principles. The feminine archetype has nothing to do with gender. Again, that's a social construct. Each one of us has masculine and feminine, or yin and yang energy. And the best way to explain this is consciousness is genderless. And so these asteroid goddesses just really express within this event chart the need to tap into the natural principle of getting in touch with our emotions on a deeper level. So I had to pause that for a second. So let me break down some of these asteroid goddesses that are really helping us out during this lunation. Absolutely love this. So the first thing that I want to speak, well, I'm going to point out this and then I'll bring the chart down, but Cassandra is at 2 degrees Pisces in the ninth house. She is semi-sextile to Pluto in Aquarius in the 7th. We also have Lilith in the 7th in Capricorn, ruled by this Saturn. Cassandra, Saturn, all ruled by this Neptune. Pluto ruled by this Uranus. You see how these themes keep coming up. Lilith is trining this Uranus. The other dynamic I want to speak to is I went over Hecate in the weekly forecast. She's still making the same aspect. Go and check that out. But we also have Aletheia at 6 degrees Sag in the 5th, ruled by this Jupiter in the 12th, which is again conjunct that north node of Uranus. And then they are sextile to the north node of Neptune, who is ruled by the sun in the 8th. Let me see if I have anything else. No. Okay. So keep this in mind here. And, oh, Aletheia is trining Venus and Aries in the 10th house. Love this. So, let's talk about this. I went over Cassandra a little bit in the weekly astrology forecast, but Cassandra in that 9th house in Pisces, ruled by Neptune, conjunct the north node, and she is semi-sextile Pluto in the 7th in Aquarius, is there can be some, not all, who have trauma that they are needing to heal around speaking truth. This is definitely seen with like Mercury in conjunct the South Node, which I already went over. But there's a lot of healing that can happen, and there's a lot of needing to recover through not hiding Pisces, who one is anymore. And it's around your voice, the ways in which you express yourself, the truth, and healing of your own inner relationship to self. And there are some who have experienced speaking a truth and not being heard, believed, seen, or understood, and possibly scapegoated or victimized through that dynamic. There can be a lot of context coming up for those of you who have experienced this, where you are actually being called to heal this so that way you can start utilizing the truth again in a different way and to not over-identify Pluto and Aquarius, where you spoke something and it was not believed. It is not about speaking and it being believed all the time. Sometimes it's about planting a seed. And with Pluto in the seventh house and a semi-sextile to Cassandra, there is a way one can heal through coming out of hiding and liberating from over-identifying with that past trauma where you weren't heard. Pluto in the seventh. For other people, this can be where, if this is like a hard aspect to your chart, where someone might be wanting to tell you the truth and it's hard for you to hear it. And so there's a need to liberate from that dynamic of not wanting to hear the truth. It just kind of depends on where this is aspecting your chart. But ultimately, with Cassandra in the ninth and in Pisces, it's really around healing your own beliefs that have affected your sense of self and your ability to use your voice. And it's about not hiding that anymore. And that's seen with Neptune in that 10th house, to recover your own personal voice of authority. And to not over-identify with whether or not someone hears it, but it's about understanding that sometimes a supreme form of giving, Pisces, Neptune, is where we just plant a seed revolving around the truth, and that person can do whatever they want with it. It's not our business. We've done our job. We planted the seed. We spoke the truth. It's when we get hung up on the information and we over-identify with it where we can end up re-victimizing ourselves. And that's where we need to take accountability. The other thing is Lilith is in Capricorn in the seventh. Lilith is truly about, she's like an indomitable force around recovering one's true soul nature. And she is in the seventh house, like beckoning for us to remember natural laws of giving, sharing, and inclusion. And she is ruled by Saturn and Pisces in the ninth to recover your truth and then to structure your life around that truth and understand that you are an equal that has never gone away. If you ever bought into a belief that you weren't, that is a distortion of natural law. And so she's really here trying to help us to restructure and is really speaking to, with the trine to Uranus, to recover our inner listening around this so that way we can restructure our life in a way that feels more authentic, that is more authentic, and where we feel empowered and sovereign and our own authority. So it can really be, again, this is all the bottom line is around self-actualizing through relating to ourselves in a different way that is more rooted in natural, timeless truth and self-sufficient and self-reliance. And these asteroid goddesses are pulling this in. And then the last one I want to get into is Aletheia. And Aletheia is in the fifth house, so it's bringing in the, I want to pull this up so I can read this to you guys, is in the fifth house, so it's bringing in that Leo vibe. But Aletheia is all about understanding our truth. And we can see with Aletheia there, it's where that can be mirrored or exposed to us, our actual, authentic, sag truth. And when it is, there's this need for us to self-actualize through that. And she is ruled by Jupiter and Gemini. So it's like through our pure emotion within our consciousness, we get to rediscover our truth, relearn Jupiter and Gemini. And that can come through the higher mind. North node of Uranus conjunct that Jupiter, which is Alethea's ruler. I have a friend who lives in Cyprus, and anytime I speak about the asteroid goddesses, not anytime, but most times, especially within like the Greek pantheon, she ends up emailing me and we have a conversation about it. So I'm going to shout out my friend Paulina. And I think that it's important for me to share something. I did a YouTube video over Aletheia, but Paulina ended up messaging me and she told me thank you and she loved it. And she is so knowledgeable because she is Greek. And she sent me an email and she told me another myth about Aletheia. And it ties into the etymology. And this is so pertinent for where Aletheia is, the aspects and the conversations going down in this event chart for this full moon lunation. I have to share this. She said, which I knew this and I spoke about this, Aletheia means truth. It is like a Greek word for truth. But she said that Aletheia is a composite of a, which means non, and lethe, which means forgetting. And she said, there's a myth that goes that the souls who are about to incarnate must drink from the waters of lethe, forgetting, to be born clean of the memories of their past into their new life. So the truth that Aletheia is speaking to ultimately is that we are souls going through the wheel of reincarnation in order to evolve. Seeking for the truth is about remembering who we are, where we came from, and why. Now, if you are wanting to relate to yourself in a new way, to have a transformation of your inner relationship to self, Uranus and Taurus, the moon in a square to that, the moon in the second house, all of these things I'm talking about. A lot of us have forgotten our truth on a soul level, stemming from conditioning. We've forgotten it. And Aletheia in the fifth house and in Sag is really saying it is time for you to remember who you are in order to relate to yourself in the ways in which you were intended to. And I love this so much because Aletheia's ruler, Jupiter, in the 12th house, just went over it. It's like where we are needing to tap into our truth, the ultimate truth, and to rediscover and relearn who we are through that our higher mind, North Node and Uranus. That North Node of Uranus conjunct Jupiter, both in Gemini, are sextile to the North Node of Neptune. And Neptune's got it going on in this chart. That North Node of Neptune is in Leo in the second house. All of us have our North Node of Neptune in Leo. It's very slow moving. But what that is speaking to is when we remember our truth, we get to co-create through the divinity, with the divine. And how we are meant to co-create right now is through rediscovering and remembering our unique individuality and authenticity on a soul level. That's actually bringing, and it's an act of love, Leo, which humanity needs right now. And so I wanted to speak about this because I love that she shared that with me. And then I loved looking at the astrology for this event, because it speaks to that. And so many of us think about it, ultimately, as we remember and we rediscover our truth on a soul level, it creates ripples of love. And it is an act of co-creation with others by being yourself and reflecting that back to source as well. And there's a lot of distortions playing out in the world right now, and we all need to do our part of rediscovering exactly who we are on a soul level, our unique individuality. And this lunation speaks to there are a lot of wounds for each one of us, a lot of trauma, Aquarius, Uranus, that have affected our inner relationship to self, whether it's this lifetime, prior lifetimes, or all the above, around being our unique, authentic selves. Because it's going against the patriarchal norm. This is for men and women. And this is about liberating from that and really having to have the courage, Venus and Aries, to look at the emotional impact of that. And then to make a conscious choice to relate to oneself differently. I'm not going to be a victim anymore. I'm going to take accountability. I'm going to make a conscious effort to really dive into how my consciousness has been conditioned, whether or not I'm hiding myself, whether or not I need to get more in touch with the ways in which I talk to myself, the ways in which I think about myself, my own judgments, my own everything. That way I can start to relate to myself in a deeper, honest way that honors myself in a loving way and in an authentic way. And this full moon has this, it's just so big. The last thing I want to say about all of this is a year, Pluto in Aquarius. It has had two oppositions from Mars. The first one was when Pluto was in Capricorn, Mars was in in Cancer. Then we had another one where Pluto was in Aquarius and Mars was in Leo. Once Mars stations direct, which I will make a video on this later on, it is going to oppose this Pluto again whenever it re-enters Leo. That is really speaking to the collective dynamic of this is a year where we are supposed to liberate from any type of dependency and to understand that we are here to co-create with everyone to empower community. And the way that we do that is through letting go of things that are impeding upon us knowing our unique individuality, or where we've created dependencies on people, places, things, beliefs, ideas, anything that is not conducive to your unique soul individuality. And this full moon is saying we are called to oppose the past way of relating to ourselves in order to make new choices to relate to ourselves that align with understanding our truth. And then it can create a ripple effect. So I hope you all have a magical full moon. And remember that no matter what comes up on an emotional level, it is a trigger that is giving you an opportunity to improve, to purge, to heal, and to relate to yourself in a different way that is actually honoring your truth. And it can and will take a conscious effort because it's dealing with things at a soul level, on an emotional level. And it is going to challenge our thinking and our beliefs. And we have to lean into that curve, and we have to feel, and we have to rediscover. So, happy full moon. Have a beautiful week. And I can't wait to see more of you, as always. Bye.